Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 87 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parisi here with my co-host Aiden Sarah. And Aiden, how fitting is it that the 87 Sidney Crosby episode is just the one where we're talking about the Stanley Cup being handed out? That's right. We have a new Stanley Cup champion, but not really. The Florida Panthers defend their title, crushing the Edmonton Oilers with a Game 6 defeat. Aiden, where do you want to go from here?
Oh boy. I feel like if we talk about the flaws of the Edmonton Oilers in the last two games of this series, it's just going to be me angrily ranting about it.
And that's not fun, is it?
Well, it's also repetitive because it's been the problem and it's been what's held them back. And unfortunately, in this series, it happened again. But rather than looking at the negatives, James, the Florida Panthers won this Stanley Cup because in this series they absolutely suffocated the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, Aiden, I mean I hate using this analogy, but at times it felt like men against boys. It really, really did. Like, I hate to skip ahead as well, but just watching some of the defensive breakdowns by Oilers players and then the lack of response against this just juggernaut of a Panthers team, at times after the first few games, did it also feel to you that you weren't watching the Stanley Cup final?
After games one and two, the
And
ice
three, and
tilted.
three. I thought game three was cup finally.
That's hard because I didn't really think Edmonton was in it nearly enough to call it that, honestly. And
Okay, emotionally it still felt that way.
yeah, and Florida, the way Florida exacted their authority on that game that was the statement that we're not messing around like we did last year.
Yeah.
This is not going to be the same thing.
I mean, there's a lot of places we can go from here, but I feel like let's start it on an excessively positive note. Let's hand out our flowers to some of these guys. Some of these guys who are just fantastic this series, and you can really take it anywhere, but I think we start down this Panthers lineup and work our way up. And the first guy I want to mention, it's crazy. I'm gonna mention E2 Luosterainen first. The guy had 19 even strength points in, I believe, 22 games.
23, yeah.
23. Yeah, that's those kind of numbers are numbers you see from a first liner. But Luosterainen playing on that third line with Lundell and Marchand, I want to say that's probably the best third line I've seen on a cup winning team in years. Is it not? Is what compares?
That's a question I think we'll have to take a step back. Immediately in my head, I think Hagelin, Kessel, Benino. Uh,
Okay, yep.
f-
There you go.
but the way they played, like this Florida Panthers third line, and I love that you started with Luosterainen because that's a great place to start. Florida have a habit of collecting very effective all situation players like their Infinity Stones. And Luosterainen is just another example. They targeted him in the trade that when they traded away Vincent Trocheck. They wanted this guy because he was a Carolina Hurricanes pick. He always had a scoring touch, ended up with 43 points in 82 games 2 years ago. And you could see that Paul Maurice was building this guy into like an all situations third line winger. And his scoring went down, but he was playing just as well, just kind of in a different role. 24 points in 80 games in the regular season. And then he puts up 19. He had five less points in the playoffs than he did in the regular season in 57 less games.
Numbers like that are just insane, and I really have to reiterate that's all at even strength. There's no power play. There's not even anything shorthanded. The guy did all of that at 5 on 5, and to explain that even further, we really have to break down this line. Anton Lundell, he is definitely a second line center on almost every other team in the NHL, right?
Yeah, he's if not like borderline he might be a borderline first line center if he spent his entire career on a team that played him in the top six from the time he was ready to be a top six player. And that's nothing against Florida because they've used Lundell very effectively to incredible success in the last couple of years. But this was a phenomenal player and, a phenomenal draft pick at the time, obviously, too.
Phenomenal draft pick, him going 12th overall to the Florida Panthers in that 2020 draft. That one that it can be a little bit all over the place. It's a hard year to judge. And the six picks before him being Askarov, Perfetti, Rossi, Jack Quinn, Alexander Holtz, and Jamie Drysdale. I'm taking Anton Lundell over all of them.
Seth Jarvis was the pick after Lundell, and I'm also taking Jarvis over all those, just for the record.
Dylan Holloway is the pick after that, and I'm also taking him after all of them.
We could do this for a while in this 2020 draft.
Yeah.
We're not going to go too deep into this, but again, I've said this time and time again. It's the COVID development impact.
Mm.
That's what we're talking about here.
Okay, and then finally the final and perhaps most important member of that line, depending on who you ask. Brad Marchand. The headline should be how the hell was he a Florida Panther?
Best rental since Marian Gaborik. And I know they kept Gaborik, but like best deadline acquisition
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
Marian Gaborik. It has to
If you're
be.
acquired as a rental, we still call it a rental.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, man. And like good for Sam Bennett, right? I thought he deserved the Conn Smythe. He was dominant in all situations, more so than Marchand was. But boy, 10 goals and 20 points in 23 games. And his Stanley Cup final was so good. He was unreal against Toronto. I thought he took a little bit of a step back as far as his energy in the conference final,
Mhm.
but boy, in the Stanley Cup final, he played like he played like a guy. He played like a guy who was playing for his first cup at his age, right? You wouldn't know that Brad Marchand has been here and done that. Like the way this guy competed was so impressive. Um, and at 37 years old, like he's not going to be on the Olympic team next year. It pains me to say that a little bit because of how good he just looked in these playoffs. Um, but between this Stanley Cup, this playoff run, the Four Nations face-off, like 37-year-old Brad Marchand, what a way to put an exclamation point. I know he's still probably got a couple years left in him, but if he retired right now, this is a Hall of Fame career we're looking at, honestly. Like, and this second Stanley Cup just contributes to that even more.
I couldn't agree more. In it's made him a lock Hall of Famer this past 6 months. It's and that's something insane to think of too, right? Because before, up until 6 months ago, you could catch just about everyone on our end of the hockey media spectrum having the debate here and there on whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. And it's always, oh, well, he has to do one more thing. Oh, well, he has to do this. Oh, he has to do that. Well, dude, he's got a bunch of things. And if the NHL were the NBA, he also would have a Stanley Cup Finals MVP on his
Yeah,
resume.
that's
Because
right.
that is how the NBA does it. They do a Finals MVP, not an MVP for the duration of playoffs. And yes, if we were in a parallel universe, that's exactly what he would have to his name. Aiden, Florida embraced him too. Absolutely loved the guy. Like Sam Bennett was quoted as saying in his celebration post-game interview, biggest dog I have ever played with.
I love
Sam Bennett's
that.
played with some dogs, dude.
Yeah.
He's played with some wolves, man. Brad Marchand is a junkyard dog with a lot of personality and spunk. Like he's a junkyard dog that like you could also take for a walk, you know? Like he's not fully feral, like he chooses his moments and I like that. I
when
like
when
that
he
a
needs
lot.
to be, when it's effective for him to be.
Um Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett and that whole Florida Panthers team, they amused me to no end while I sat at the Tap and Barrel in Brentwood and I took down an appy combination including uh spicy Korean chicken wings, deep fried pickles, and Cajun seasoned tater tots.
Was it good?
Unreal.
I'm glad. I Skytrained past that Tap and Barrel in Brentwood yesterday on my way downtown. Finally tried El Guapo, which has been your
What?
recommendation, and excellent. Love it.
Oh,
My dad and I went
that's
to the Canada Gold Cup soccer game after. That was
that's
our
awesome, man.
that was our
A couple of
pregame.
my buddies actually went. Like they it was a 6-0 blowout, but they said, "Damn, what an experience."
Yeah, it's well, and you know what? I watched that Canadian team lose like 8-1 to that Honduras team when I first started watching soccer. So they've come a really long way, I'll tell you that.
Okay, and speaking of blowout, I know we're really skipping ahead here and jumping all over the place, but bear with us. This is just how my mind works. And Aiden is much in the same boat. Um, that final game, that game six, I don't think I spoke to a single person who thought the Oilers were going to win it.
Yeah, again, and you know what? I would have been right there with you, except for the fact that like going back to the third round of last year's playoffs, I've thought Edmonton was going to lose every series they were in. And that's not because I don't like this team. I wanted them to win this Stanley Cup so bad. But James, honestly, I'm sorry. It was the first goal. It was the first goal of this hockey game sunk them. Like Corey Perry, Leon Draisaitl, Matthias Ekholm has the puck. This is nothing, this play. And Ekholm gives it to Bouchard. Bouchard with an absolute, like, just no effort play on those boards. Reinhardt steals the puck. Bouchard's back check is pretty embarrassing, too. And that's their top defense pair and their first line on the ice. It wasn't McDavid, Draisaitl, or Perry's fault. And it's another play where if you're Stuart Skinner, you need a save. We can talk about Skinner again because I think it was that third goal was one of the most embarrassing rebounds I've ever seen as well. But at that point, it's Edmonton needed to take control of this game. Florida was not going to let another multi-goal lead slip at all. That was a one-time Edmonton got like I'm not saying Edmonton got lucky. They fought their way back. They earned that. They earned the hell out of it. But Florida was in no situation going to let that happen again. So when it was a weak goal to put Florida up 1-0, it felt like any life Edmonton might have had was just sucked out of them. And you and I were talking yesterday, and we both I think arrived at the conclusion that as much as anything else, the big dogs were just beaten down too.
I had a 9-way parlay and 8 of the legs hit. The only one that didn't was Draisaitl, 2 or more shots. He had 0.
That's usually the safest one on any parlay you're gonna do
Yep.
too.
Yep. And it was all safe things. Every
Yeah.
single one of those things was safe. Like it was $10 to win $46 in a 9-way parlay. Every single one of those things looked to be a lock. But whatever. I That immediately reminds me of this morning I read Matthew Kachuk's quote. I'm gonna paraphrase here, but um he said, everyone on this team of ours matters. We cannot do it without every single one of us. When something goes wrong, we look to everyone in the room, everyone on the bench. Whereas on the other team, they look to one guy. And you know what? They look to that couple, that twin-headed dragon of Draisaitl and McDavid way too much. How much of this playoffs did I spend saying, I am so sick of watching the Oilers go down 2 or 3 goals and come back every game. I'm so bored of it. It's not that I hate the Oilers. It's just that I'm sick of watching the same game over and over and over again. It's not even interesting anymore. You know how much money people have probably won in this year's playoffs just betting on Oilers comebacks every time they're down by 2 goals? Like if my credit card wasn't maxed up until the third round of this playoffs, I totally would have hopped on that bandwagon. But it's just it was just stupid to me. And I'm so happy that the Panthers just ended it. When they let it happen in what was it, game two?
Florida, or sorry, the blowing the
Uh,
lead.
yeah, that big comeback.
It was in game 4 in
Game
Florida.
four.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So they let that happen, and I'm like, oh God, more Oilers comebacks. It's crazy. I could never see that coming. Whoa. Dude, that's so cool. This is the greatest comeback ever. Whoa. Actually by the numbers, it is the largest comeback in a single game in the Stanley Cup Finals ever. But that doesn't matter to me because they do it all the time. All the time. And then the Panthers just didn't let it happen ever again. I love that they never let it happen again. Especially considering the laundry list of injuries we've now heard of. Aiden, let's start with Sam Reinhart, who had 4 goals in that cup final game, 2 of them empty netters, but still 4 goals.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Reinhardt not so much because of the injury, but more because of the fact that I pointed to him as one of those guys on Team Canada that was going to lead them to success at the best on best level because he'd been there, done that. Game winning goal in game 7 of the final last year. And it's not a coincidence that, you can criticize Reinhardt for maybe not being the player that Florida wanted him to be this year. He did take a step back statistically, but no
But he was a
criticizing.
Selke nominee and had some of the best defensive numbers of all time by a winger.
And you can't take away timeliness. You can't take away the gene of clutch that he's really solidified at this point.
Hmm.
Barkov, we talked about this. Barkov was doing a great job in his everything else, but he wasn't getting points. And Matthew Tkachuk, who was also hurt, looked very hurt for pretty much the
Hey, you want
last
me to
two rounds
run
of the
through these
playoffs.
injuries?
Yeah, let's do it. Go.
Sam Reinhart, that hit that put him out in the Eastern Conference Final, game 2, or whatever it was, whatever game. I'm kind of flubbing this, but grade 2 MCL sprain. I don't know how to differentiate grades of MCL sprain, but I know anytime you're messing around with that ACL, MCL, PCL, I've experienced a lot of PCL injuries myself. It sucks. I can't imagine being at the top level of a professional sport at this point in the year when everything matters that much while dealing with that. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, Barkov split open the palm of his hand, according to head coach Paul Maurice. He had the stitches ripped out twice, and eventually he just glued it together. This is insane to me. And you think about how much stick work that guy does, where the palm of his hand is tightly up against that glove. I don't know what they're wrapping it in, man, but it's not doing much. Not doing much at all. Reinhardt also his 4 goals last night in game 6. No player has ever scored, no player has scored 4 goals in the clinching game since Maurice Richard in 1957. Nuts. Matthew Tkachuk, his injuries. What do we got here? Torn abductor. I don't know what an abductor is. Aiden, do you know what an abductor is?
I do because I it's a muscle that moves like your limb away from your body's. I looked this up yesterday. Um
Well, he had that and a sports hernia on the same side of his body.
yeah, I think the medical terminology was that abductor muscles are a group of muscles that move a body part away from your body's like midline. So it's very like it would have been his hips and um kind of the thigh muscles that would have been very much affected by that.
That adductor muscle was torn from the bone. Like it was no
Yeah,
longer attached to the bone. That's nuts.
yeah, that,
Like what? And you remember 2 years ago he had what, a broken sternum in the finals?
yeah,
And
and
they had to make him not play.
yeah, and Brady had to dress him, I think.
Yeah. Like what the hell? Oh man, I these injuries just speak to how much hockey players are warriors, man. I'm not gonna sit here and beat the never-ending drum and compare it to players from other sports because I've done it all before.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna be a broken record for you guys like I usually am. But dude, Matthew Kachuk. Go get you one of those if you want to play in the finals. Go get you one of those. Is there one? Is there one on the way? Is there a player in the developing in the NHL that we think can do that?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. There's people that will tell you it's Ryan Leonard, man.
That's where my brain went as well.
Yeah. And I think it's Caden Lindstrom. I think it
He has
might
that
be
dog in him like that.
I
He's that angry and mean.
if this injury rehab gets him back on the development track, man. Like yes. Yeah, and he's a center, which makes him all the scarier.
Hmm. Wow. Other takeaways from the Stanley Cup final. Sam Bennett taking home the Conn Smythe. Other people said it could have been you could have thrown it Bobrovsky's way even. I wouldn't have been mad at that. People said Marchand, but again, it's not just the finals, it's the duration of the whole thing. And I really think it was Bennett's to lose.
I agree, for sure. Like Bobrovsky, I don't think you can ever go wrong with a Stanley Cup winning goaltender who never faltered most of the time, right? Um, so I would have absolutely not had any problem seeing Bobrovsky win it. But don't forget, Sam Bennett, 22 points in 23 games, 15 of those were goals, and that's a big impact to make. And
Yeah.
nothing against Connor McDavid, who 26 of his 33 points were assists. Like obviously that impact is still gigantic. But for Bennett to chip in with 15 goals, like that is big, and you don't see that very often. What is the record for most goals in a single postseason?
Oh, I think it's 18.
Yeah, so that tells you how close this guy was.
18, 19 maybe.
It's 19 from Reggie Leach and Yari Curry. It's a tie.
There you go.
Um, and I remember Zach Hyman last year, and then Mark Scheifele the year that the Jets lost to Vegas in the conference final were the two that almost almost were looking like they were going to beat
They
it.
were
But
within pissing distance for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and Bennett, like at the end of the day, take a step back. Look at what the Florida Panthers did earlier on in these playoffs. They handled Tampa in five, they handled Carolina in five, they handled Edmonton in six. So there could have easily been more games for Bennett to keep scoring like this. And kind of the reason that I'm saying that is to point to the fact that James, this Florida Panthers team has really done something historic. And there's a time to talk about tax advantages, but this isn't that time
No, no.
um because I want to actually talk about Paul Maurice. Um
Okay.
talk about like this Florida Panthers group and Paul Maurice are like soulmates. Like the hockey equivalent of two people meant to meet each other and fall in love and die together. Like
Oh, like a an old school sailor and the sea.
yes, yeah, that's
Yeah.
Paul Maurice and this group of Florida Panthers, and
Yeah.
you saw it right away. Like for a guy who was a head coach since 1995, man, like no, he had never won the Stanley Cup. He finally made it to the finals for the second time in his whole career in his first year in Florida, and then got them over the finish line once and twice. And as good as this Panthers team is up and down, this is not a team that are 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 winning the Stanley Cup just by virtue of the names and the skill they have. This is a team winning the Stanley Cup by virtue of how they play, and Paul Maurice deserves all the credit in the world for that. And especially, honestly, how he handled this series, especially too, because so easily we could have seen after after Edmonton came back in game four, like that could have really sunk Florida. But instead, they outscore Edmonton 10-3 in the last two games of the series, and Edmonton really never looked like they had a shot.
Yeah, and I think I really like to relate this whole Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers thing to you ever been at work and loved your boss?
Oh, yeah.
You love coming in every day. And even on a bad day where you don't love coming in, you're like, oh well, at least I get to hang out with this guy or this girl, whatever it is. Could you imagine being a Florida Panthers depth guy and there's something you're worried or concerned about, and you have to go walk into Paul Maurice's office? You feel good about that. You feel damn good about that. So you spend a year, 2 years, 3 years. That's three long runs through the playoffs. Hell of a lot of games. And that's 300 games in the past 900 days. Like, think about how many of those conversations there are. How many of those are tough conversations too.
And you win the hardest trophy in sports to win twice back
Twice.
to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the result. We'll see what happens next because Sam Bennett departing from this team has looked like a foregone conclusion for quite some time. But James, if there was ever a reason for Florida to throw all the money in the world at him, it's this playoff run, I think.
Well, Florida Panthers GM Bill Zito came out today and he said re-signing Marchand, Ekblad, and Bennett, all three of them, is his first priority, and the team will do everything they can to do so.
James, lots of people talk a lot about the Stanley Cup final. I think everybody's heard it all. The last thing I'm going to say, and it was funny that you just made a comment. I don't know if you noticed me kind of smirk at you when you made a comment about not being a broken record, because I'm going to immediately be a broken record and say that this is yet another example of a team that would not in any way, shape, or form have won the Stanley Cup without a previous top two pick in the NHL draft winning the Stanley Cup with them. Alexander Barkov, Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, and Aaron Ekblad were all results of either Florida's picks
Seth
or
Jones.
Florida. Well, Jones, I was going to just say like Tkachuk, they got for Huberto, who is a top three
Hmm.
pick, right? Like I'm talking about them being
Right,
able
yeah.
to turn these young assets into superstars, right? Um, Alexander Barkov, second overall pick. You need to be in that spot to get these players. And the 2019 Blues are the outlier. No NHL team goes into a season thinking we're going to win the Stanley Cup the way the 2018-19 St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. That's
Damn
asinine.
right.
Um, it'll never happen again. So,
Yeah, they didn't have a top three pick, but they had themselves a Ryan O'Reilly. So,
and Alex Pietrangelo, who was obtained in the same way, right? That I'm that I'm professing here. So yeah, just another example, man. And so in the summer, when I'm talking about how it's time for the Vancouver Canucks to trade Quinn Hughes and tear it all down, people are gonna listen to me like I'm some nut job. But at the end of the day, priority one for an NHL team, in my opinion, should be winning the Stanley Cup, and so that's what I will always advocate for is the measures by which the Stanley Cup can be attained.
one question remains for this Florida Panthers team, Aiden, before we bookend this. Are they a true dynasty? And if not, what do they need to become that?
One more,
Okay.
yeah. Because Chicago, to me, Chicago wasn't a dynasty. Like we call them the modern dynasty because of how hard dynasties are to build in the cap era. And I think we're going to be staring down the barrel of that with, again, obviously, Bill Zito is going to say, yes, Bennett, we want to sign Bennett, we want to sign Ekba, we want to sign Marchand. The chance of them signing all three of those guys and keeping the rest of the team together in a similar way is sub-zero. So that is the big hurdle of the salary cap era. You wouldn't have had those problems when the New York Islanders or Edmonton Oilers or Montreal Canadiens were in the dynasty years of their own. So I know dynasty previously has kind of been considered four Stanley Cups in a row. Um, salary cap era, I think we can safely say three. So let's go one more with Florida because we weren't talking about that with Pittsburgh or Tampa either, right? And Tampa even made the final
We were talking about that with Tampa.
because they were in the final on the verge of
Yes.
winning their third in the row. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. We didn't talk about that with Pittsburgh.
No.
Oh wait, no, that was talked about with Pittsburgh because of the previous cup 7 years before.
And that's a little much too.
Yeah. Yes, Aiden, I think I thought of one more thing I have to add though. Just before we move on to some NHL news, lots for us to cover. Florida and every guy in that locker room made sure that every single player who hadn't hoisted the Stanley Cup before got to touch the cup first after Barkov hoisted it.
That's class. Class from a team that had won last year, right? And a bunch of guys that a bunch of guys like you talked about what Matthew Tkachuk said already. You talked about what he said about the togetherness of the team and how they're playing for each other and they're all looking to each other. That's a perfect example of putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, right? The actions backing up the words from the whole team there.
Barkov even went back into the rink, back onto the ice at 1:23 a.m., I believe it was, to hoist the cup and give a big cheer for the Florida Panthers staff and arena staff that were cleaning up in the arena in the seats, top to bottom, class at all levels. Love to see it. But Aiden, congrats to the Florida Panthers on one hell of a Stanley Cup win, on being repeat champs. But let's get to some news.
Hockey happening, but behind the scenes, there's tons and tons of news, James, including the fact that we have our award winners. And I'm always pumped when I see a goaltender get the recognition he deserves against skaters. You don't see it very often, but Connor Hellebuck's the Hart Trophy winner. Let's start there.
Yeah, Aiden Hellbuck taking home the Hart and the Vezina this year. I mean, I bet if you ask him, he would much rather be playing right now than have his name called out for these. 100%. Like the guy is a true born competitor, and it's really unfortunate that we spent a lot of this spring talking about how he just can't do it in big moments. But I kind of hope the script has changed on him so far. But yeah, Aiden, first goalie to do so since Carey Price, I believe, 10 years ago, 2015. How do the numbers compare? Do we know that?
Price.
I want to say Price's season was better.
I remember it being better. Now, that might be by virtue of the team, because I believe this Winnipeg team was stronger than that Montreal team.
That's right.
Hellebuck this season's, wow, 47, 12, and 3, 2.00 goals against average, and a 925 save percentage.
Not bad.
Carey Price 14, 15, 44, 16, and 6 with a 1.96 goals against and a 933 save percentage. Wow. So I mean, and
Aiden, the 933 is nuts.
all of those numbers I listed off are nuts. Like Hellebuck's 3 and Price's 3 are all crazy, and I guess very deservedly so, right? If there was going to be a follow up to Carey Price's Hart Trophy season, it's this one from Connor Hellebuck. He gets the most number of first place votes by nearly 30. Draisaitl and Kucherov are the other two finalists. McKinnon had more first place votes than Kucherov. Interestingly enough, he finishes fourth because of the way like the points allocation works. James, what would your ballot have been? Top three.
Honestly, I feel I feel this is easier to do before teams make the playoffs. Because before it was found out that Columbus isn't making the playoffs, you have to say Zach Werenski's your guy. Or you have to say Quinn Hughes is your guy. But to me, they don't even make the ballot because of that. You could also, if Calgary had made playoffs, I would have even put Dustin Wolf at 3.
He
Now,
had,
some casual fans think that's nuts. They think that is the stupidest thing they've ever heard.
and I was blowing the Nico Hischier horn, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
totally. I mean, this is a guy who was playing in every situation against team's top players every night and willing his team into playoffs after a year of injury after injury after injury and setback after setback. Like, I think was he even mentioned on the ballot?
He finishes seventh place, Werenski.
Okay, he sure
Um,
get any love.
he sure finishes 14th, so he got one fourth place vote, one fifth place vote. Those were my two guys all year that I really wanted to see get some love. And Werenski got more than Hischier. Hischier I think suffered from kind of how good everybody was this year.
My ballot was probably Draisaitl, Hellebuck, McKinnon. Um, I I don't know if I have anti-Kucherov bias from all the years that him and McKinnon both have the same insane year, but I just feel that those players are more important to their team's success in every aspect than him. He can put up 5 points in a game like very, very easily, but also you see him take more games off than any of those other players we mentioned.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Draisaitl or McKinnon just take a game off in the past, what, 5 years? Yeah,
Hmm.
maybe when they were in their first or second season, not really knowing what it takes to win, but those other guys never stop. And dude, Kucherov won 2 cups and he has every other award in his resume, like, but he's more Alexei Kovalev than Sidney Crosby, you
I get
know?
it. Yeah. Again, though, like the playoff props, I'll give him. He's got
Totally.
the playoff resume is closer to Crosby than it is to Kovalev by quite a
Totally.
good margin. I probably would agree with you. Dude, I was just all over Werenski this year. I still have him probably third. I would have gone Hellebuck, Draisaitl, Werenski. And that is only by virtue of how good both Makar and McKinnon were. Those two guys kind of split that Colorado vote for me. I think I definitely have one of them. If the other one it misses a lot of time and they still have the same success. Interestingly enough, and again, I'm totally a hockey nerd to the point where I go back and do this like years prior, but it's interesting to look at the voting because you can see how many first place, second place, third place, etc. votes each player got, which is funny to look at some of the random first place votes. Zach Werenski won first place vote. One of the voters gave Alexander Ovechkin first place for the Hart Trophy in his ballot. One of the voters gave Nick Suzuki first place in their Hart ballot. So
Oh,
some love. And now a lot of these, there's a lot of voters, and all of them can't be like completely objective. You have local voters. So
yep.
there's a good chance that a Montreal Canadiens based reporter voted for Nick Suzuki, likewise with
I bet I
Ovechkin.
know which one.
Yeah, and so yes, there's an element of like, okay, when you see those votes, um, you got the bias there. Suzuki got 9 fifth place votes. He finishes ninth overall in voting.
It's not bad, man.
No,
It's not
love to
bad at
see
all.
it. And especially from a guy who would have been very upset to miss out on the last Team Canada and has done everything in his power to put himself right in the running for the next one.
100%. Aiden, let's take things to the Norris Trophy voting. Cale Makar taking home in his second Norris Trophy. I believe it should be his third, but Adam Fox just got a lot of love that one year. Even though I think Makar had a much better season, he just played a few less games, and sometimes that is a factor when we're talking about these awards. Games played it's a huge thing. A prime example would be Ryan Nugent Hopkins was a better rookie than Gabriel Landeskog in the 2011-2012 season. But Landeskog played about 20 something more games.
Pedersen, Bennington, same thing.
Yep. There you go. But yeah, Makar taking the edge in this one. Aiden, you banged the Werenski drum all year long, and people very often were massive on this being a Quinn Hughes year. Hughes not finishing in the top two from what I remember.
No, he finishes third.
Yeah. And it wasn't close, correct?
No, Werenski by quite a bit. And then even like Makar to Werenski, big step. Werenski to Hughes, big step. And then Hughes down to Morrissey was an even bigger step. The top three were kind of running away with it this year. Again, I'm a Canucks fan, but I've said this time and time again. This is Cale Makar's award to lose every single year. It's most outstanding defenseman. I really feel for the people who are going to say that we need a best defensive defenseman award, though,
I, you know
because
how I
like,
get sick of storylines?
yeah,
I'm done with that one now.
no, I get it. But even looking at this list, Jacob Slavin finishes eighth, and objectively, he's the best defensive defenseman. He was in the biggest tournament this season. He was good in the playoffs. Like we see this guy and we see his ability. Like when you watch him and you think, "Wow, he's awesome." That's how he always is. I'm just saying that because I know like Carolina Hurricanes hockey. Not a lot of people are just leisurely watching Hurricanes hockey all the time. This
No.
guy's awesome. And I would have put him in my top five without a doubt this year. Makar, Werenski, and Hughes were all just a cut above outstanding for the
Mhm.
top three. And again, I agree with Hughes in third. I thought he had a great start to the year, but Werenski for 88. Again, I'm not saying they both played 82 games, but for the duration of the season, Werenski was consistently better.
Yeah, I totally get that with you there. But you're right. On the Slavin matter, if he were playing for an original six franchise or some random Canadian market, or even a team that's playing against one of those every season and all the time, it maybe you'd see more of it, but it's like it's even worse than someone in Minnesota getting love. Also, just speaking of Minnesota, if Kaprizov played a full season, that's in my MVP.
Yeah,
MVP
for
for
sure.
sure. Maybe even like you could have even seen Kaprizov get a Ted Lindsay vote from his peers, 100%.
Mhm.
Like he's going to win a major award next season if he stays healthy, 100%.
I don't like ringing the Toronto bell all the time. But Jacob Slavin in Toronto is a Norris finalist almost every
Yep.
year. And I'll point to Mitch Marner. And I'm not, again, I have always been a Marner defender, including the fact that I think he very much deserves the love he gets as far as being a defensively sound winger. But defensively sound wingers never, ever, ever get Selke love, and Marner specifically has. Joel Kiviranta was one of the best defensive forwards in the NHL this year. Like, that's just a fact. Will he ever get a Selke vote? No, of course not. But Marner, of course, will because he's in Toronto, and it's the same thing with Slavin. That's again, that's not a criticism on Marner. He deserves the love he gets in that category. It's just that it's the eyes on him that often lead to it.
100%, man. And I need to stop saying 100%. Maybe I'll go to 99%. Maybe I don't agree with everything. But um you do get a lot of that down ballot love on certain things. I remember I think 3 years in a row, Valerie Nichushkin was in the top 10 for Selke voting, and I think he only played more than 14 minutes a game in one of those years.
We had a third place Lane Hudson vote. We had a second place Thomas Harley vote. Harley finished as seventh. Love that
Yep.
recognition for an amazing season. Jake Sanderson in the top 10. Deserved. Rasmus Dahlin finished sixth. Good for him, still getting recognized despite the fact he's been playing and strapped to a dumpster
Well, he's a
fire.
bus driver.
Yeah. As is Victor Hedman, who finishes fifth. Got one second place vote, but a lot of love in those three, four, five spots.
Totally.
You want to go Calder?
Yeah, let's go Calder because this is the one I have the most strong feelings about.
Okay, one, Lane Hudson, Montreal Canadiens. Two, Dustin Wolf, Calgary Flames. Three, Macklin Celebrini, San Jose Sharks. Michkov, Gauthier, Smith, Stankoven down the list. James,
Okay.
I'll let you take it if you've got some very strong
Putting
emotions here.
Michkov anywhere higher than three would have been wrong. I would have accepted him at three. I wouldn't have been thrilled about it, even though he had a fantastic year. I wouldn't have been thrilled about it because any of those guys in the top three, Wolf, Hudson, Celebrini, all of those guys deserve the Calder this year. This is to me the most complete Calder race I've seen in recent memory. Yeah, sure, it can be neck and neck between two guys, but Dustin Wolf is a legitimately elite NHL starting goaltender already. It's not a flash in the pan. He's already that good. He was that good while he was in the AHL. They just didn't have a spot for him yet because they hadn't traded Jacob Markstrom yet. He would have been a Calder nominee a year before. He didn't need more seasoning. This was just for fun. And Macklin Celebrini, first line center, and playing dynamic two-way hockey and just perfect as of 18 years old.
Wouldn't it
Um,
be nice?
yeah, I would rather him have won this award.
Sorry, Celebrini?
I have Celebrini first.
You know what's funny? I had Wolf first.
Yeah. And you know what? This isn't a slight to Lane Hudson whatsoever. The guy was fantastic. And you guys may remember a season preview and an award prediction episode in which I was very, very hungover.
Okay.
I was in brutal condition, but I soldiered on. Aiden was a bus driver through that episode, and we had some graphics that were our predictions. Um, I was making my prediction for most points by a rookie in the East, and I said Lane Hudson, and Aiden said final answer, and then I second guessed myself, and I went, no, Michkov. So I was initially right off of my gut answer, but I changed it, and it wasn't what was set in stone. But there is an audio record of it somewhere.
It's there.
If anyone wants to go back 10 months, because I don't, but I mean, you might as well just believe me. Um, but regardless, I think Celebrini was the best rookie this season. I think he was the best player among the rookie class. I think he was the most complete. I think he's the most ready to dominate the NHL, and I think that he's going to have the best sophomore season among these guys as well.
I think the hardest thing to do as a rookie is be an excellent starting goaltender. Like that's I think it's harder to do that than be a number one defenseman, than be a power play quarterback, than be a first line center, than anything. I think being a strong starter as a
That's why
rookie.
Steve Mason was a Calder Trophy winner.
Yeah. And he had like 10 shutouts that year too.
Yeah,
That was
that was
nuts.
insane.
Yeah.
Second most
um
rookie shutouts ever, I believe, behind Tony Esposito,
that I'm not sure, but I'll take your word for it.
who I believe had 13.
Again,
Gross.
yeah, I'll that is gross, and I'll take your word for it. Some down ballot love. I've been talking about Jackson Blake forever, and it was good to see him get some love on the Calder ballot this year. Logan Stankoven too. Obviously, a little bit of a weird year for him. Splitting time between Dallas and Carolina wouldn't have been on his bingo card at the start of the year, but he adjusted pretty well. And Cutter Gauthier ended up growing into his role with the Ducks. Did not look at the start of the year like he was fitting it at all. Um, Noticeably absent from this list, James. We talked at the beginning of the season. Your name would have been Rucker McGroarty. My name would have probably been Brant Clark as far as players we would have expected to see on this Calder list didn't end up coming together.
Well, I was the one who invested very heavily in Brant Clark early on in this season, fantasy wise, and it was paying immediate dividends. That fell off a cliff quickly, and now I look stupid.
I mean,
But hey,
it was
up
just a
until
pick,
December,
right?
I looked like a genius. It was calculated. The guy was the seventh ranked fantasy defenseman as of December.
You want to talk Alexander Barkov picking up his obligatory Selke trophy?
Yeah, how many is that so far?
That's a great question. This should be the Patrice Bergeron Award. Like
I don't
maybe
think, okay, in my opinion, you can't name an award after someone until they die.
until they die. Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Because I think awards are, they should be in memoriam.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean the Hart Memorial. Yeah, like a lot of them are.
Do
So,
you know who Hart is?
oh yes, I do.
Really? I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh
I know
man.
who King Clancy is, but that's not an
Yeah.
award anymore. That's
No, I
Ted
mean,
Lindsay
and
now, which
yeah.
they changed after Ted Lindsay passed away.
No, no, no. King Clancy's still an award. King
Are you
isn't Clint
sure?
King Clancy's the most gentlemanly, right? Something like that.
No, that's the
Most
Lady Byng.
sportsman. King Clancy be oh,
King Clancy's the Ted Lindsay now, dude.
oh,
Oh
are
wait,
you
no,
serious? No, it's
no,
not.
no, no. The King Clancy is now the Mark Messier Leadership Award.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
who is also very alive. Mark Messier is alive and well.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Um, man,
Ted
oh man.
Lindsay has passed away, right? He's totally no longer
Yes.
with us, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, thank you. I felt stupid for a sec.
This is number three for Alexander Barkov, and it
Okay.
would have been more again. Patrice Bergeron won back to back. Like the last 5 years have just been Barkov and Bergeron. It's gone Barkov, Bergeron, Bergeron, Barkov, Barkov now. Um, and yeah, this is Alexander Barkov is the best of so many of these guys, right? Where you can't call him you can't put Barkov into like a box. He's everything.
Can't box,
Like
man.
no, he's everything that his team needs him to be all the time and best two-way player in the NHL. Yeah, gets his recognition. Anze Kopitar wins the Lady Bing. More love for a guy who has been not getting enough for his entire career. Again, same thing. A lot of those writers voting on the awards are live on the East Coast by virtue of the fact that more people live on the East Coast. It's not rocket science. So when a Los Angeles Kings game starts at 10 o'clock local to Eastern writers, um, on a weeknight, they're not watching that game. So Anze Kopitar has been one of the best players in the NHL for a decade and a half. And I'm very happy to see any love sent his way ever because he deserves all of it.
Lock Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Absolute lock. Taking it out of awards. We are oh wait, no, we got one more. One more, and perhaps one of the most meaningful. The Bill Masterton Award. This one was awarded to Sean Monahan this year. Best it's awarded to the award to the one who best exemplifies perseverance and dedication to the sport of hockey, correct?
Yeah, I think that's bang on exactly what it
I
is.
think that's quoted word for word.
Yeah.
It took me a fumbled stutter to get there, but yeah, Aiden, this one hits the heart for sure. Monahan, one of his best friends, and Johnny Gaudreau passes away just before the season. He signed in Columbus to have the opportunity to play with him again after the two spent years together in Calgary. And um the late Johnny Gaudreau's wife, uh she awarded the award in a surprise to Monahan. I believe it was a surprise. They don't seem set up. Makar's was a surprise as well, is Norris. But yeah, man, I cannot believe the year Monahan managed to have. And from all that I've read, the leader that he's been for all of those young guys in Columbus after what he went through and after what that group of friends and family went through, to be able to do that, 100%, man. I'd give him 10 of these awards.
Don't
I
forget,
would have given it to him just for showing up first day of training camp.
don't forget that this was a guy who looked kind of, I don't want to say done, but he was 29 and was like Calgary. Don't forget that Calgary in 2022 traded him and a first to Montreal. Like they paid a
Yeah.
first rounder for Montreal to take his contract. And this guy just rattled off 57 points in 54 games. He's 30. Like this wasn't some mid 30s guy that Calgary gave up on inexplicably. He was in his mid to late 20s when Calgary decided, okay, we're done with him. He goes to Montreal, has a couple solid years, ends up in Winnipeg at the end of last season, and then signs in Columbus initially, of course, to play with Gaudreau. But boy, has he, yeah, it's hard to not picture him with a C on his jersey eventually if he ends up playing out this contract. He's under contract till 28, 29.
It's a lot of years, but honestly, man, money well spent for a guy who can teach everyone, playing up the middle that whole time. And dude, he's been fantastic. Like, you could argue he's better offensively now than he was in his quote unquote prime.
Maybe, and I think that there's the weird combinations that you saw Calgary manage to throw together, like him, Goudreau, and I think it was Yuri Hoodler one year
Oh,
had
Hoodler was sick that
yeah,
year.
just like a crazy season together. Um, but he was kind of all over the map in Calgary because you had the year that Elias Lindholm played with Matthew Tkachuk on Johnny Gaudreau on the first line.
Right.
Um, so he was never like the lock 1C. And he's not going to be in Columbus either. Like you got Adam Fantilli, you've got Caden Lindstrom coming up. He's going to end up being bumped down that lineup. But you said it yourself. It's going to be that vet to play the role that his team needs him to play and be the mentor.
All right, let's take it out of awards and take it to some, I don't know, it doesn't feel like news, it feels like drama. Mitch Marner, according to Andy Strickland, confirmed to be leaving Toronto. Aiden, thoughts? Oh my God, Marner stuff. Wow.
We knew, didn't we? I thought we
Yeah,
knew.
yeah, I think we already had this one in the bag.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, dude, I wouldn't be signing him if I was Leafs management.
No. No, not
I
for the
think that
money
is
he's
the
going to
worst
command.
message to that locker room, worst message to that those fans. Um, I think it would be such a critical error and attempt to play it safe when actually you were playing it incredibly unsafe. Yeah, okay, you could say, "Oh my God, we're losing him for nothing." When we watch all those Steve Dangle trade tree videos that we all enjoyed so much of like 5 years ago.
That was the mid lockdown
Yeah.
thing for a while
Yep.
there. Yeah.
Those were dope. Those were 40-minute long awesomeness. I loved them. But what is one thing that was valued more than anything in those videos, Aiden?
You're going to have to.
Games played.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not letting him go for nothing. The guy played what, 600 games for you? You you drafted a guy early and he played 600 games for you. It didn't work out. He goes. Bye.
I have a little bit of a different caveat for you
Okay.
because I'm not going to say that the number of games you play with a team impacts whether or not you lost him for nothing. I don't think Toronto lost Marner for nothing because in his contract year,
You think
they
Marner lost Toronto for nothing?
I was gonna say
Flip the script.
I was gonna say that in his contract year, at the very least, Toronto and we and a lot of other people and the Toronto Maple Leafs thought they could win the Stanley Cup. So you are
Totally. I
retaining
was one of
Marner.
them.
Yeah, you are
You were
retaining
one of them.
Marner. I was also one. I had them in the final. You're retaining Marner to me as like a self rental at worst, right? Like how many times do you see it? Like Toronto did it. Toronto paid a first and a fourth for the smallest Nick Foligno sample size I've ever seen, only for him to
Yeah.
walk to Chicago, I think, in free agency. Great job. But Vancouver lost Brock Besser for nothing. There was no way, shape, or form
Oh, we're already
that
saying that?
yeah, we are.
Yeah.
There was no way, shape, or form that post trade deadline Vancouver was going to accomplish anything at all whatsoever impactful. So, not trading Besser, not getting like that is losing him for nothing. I don't care how many games Besser played for Vancouver because that was really asinine not to capitalize on the fact that,
Okay,
you have
so
a
you're
lot of
saying if
teams
they
trying to
didn't
win.
make playoffs, then it is losing him for nothing.
If they made the decision to keep him for no reason, yes. Now, if they were like ninth place with this team, like squeak into the playoffs and still think you have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, we've seen that a lot, right? We've seen strong teams not have the best regular seasons. Chicago, in the middle of their dynasty, they won in 2010, 2011, and 2012. 2011, they finished eighth they ended up playing the President's Trophy, winning Canucks in the first round. 2012, they finished sixth. They lost to the Coyotes in six in the first round. So at the very least, when you're looking at Toronto, there was a reason to keep him this year, and the reason was he could have hoisted the cup as a Maple Leaf at the end of this season. And then even if he walks into the sunset. You didn't lose him for nothing. Vancouver lost Besser for nothing. I'm not going to say the same about Toronto and Marner.
New York Rangers remain in the headlines after force feeding their captain Jacob Trouba a waiving of his no trade clause. First all time in Rangers playoff goals. One of the greatest Rangers of all time, Chris Kreider. Check out the resume. If you don't think greatest Ranger of all time, you haven't been paying attention. He is up there in the top 10, no doubt whatsoever. And anyone who is a born and bred New Yorker, anyone who is a New Yorker hockey fan, take a look online, see what they feel, how they feel about this trade. They don't care what they were getting back. If they were getting back Olin Zellweger and Cutter Gauthier, it wouldn't be enough. I can promise you that. Because Chris Kreider has unceremoniously been sent to Newport Beach to go live out the rest of his career surfing the waves, chilling on the beach, and not making the playoffs, probably, with the Anaheim Ducks. Kreider goes along with a fourth rounder in return for forward prospect Casey Terrence and a third round pick. Now, me being the silly, silly, silly possible idiot that I am, I forgot who Casey Terrence was. I apologize for that because I have since learned he's actually a solid player. You may know him from the World Juniors, where he most recently won with the United States. And Aiden, what can you tell us about Casey Terrence?
Carrie Terrence.
Harry Terrence.
I think
Okay,
there
yeah,
is a
see, I am
Casey.
I'm a silly idiot.
I feel like there is a Casey Terrence, but as far yeah, as far as Carrie Terrence goes, this is it's hard when you play in the Canadian Hockey League to make an American World Junior team. It's the same thing. Like we talk about it every year. Canada will take a CHLer over an NCAA just by virtue of where they play. The Americans are the same, but it's inverse. Guys that snub the development program get it held against them forever. Carey Terrence was an Erie Otter. He definitely deserved to make the 2024 World Junior team, even if it was just going to be in a reduced role. But he makes this one 4 seasons with Erie in the OHL, and it's consistent improvement from him. He ends up, I think, as the fourth line center from the World Junior team that won for the U.S. 2 goals in 7 games. But every time he's on the ice, I watched that entire tournament. I don't remember him making a mistake. Like I don't. So I've seen him more in a USA jersey than an Erie Otters jersey, but the thing that just screams at me about this guy from either team I've watched him play for is just solid, period.
Hmm. Middle six forward.
I think so. Third
Cool.
line center, a great. If he could be a great third line center, that would be an incredible career for this guy.
Very cool. Love to see it. And honestly, even though according to everyone who cares about this team, it's a scumbag move from Chris Drury. Just sucks. They're only doing this because Mika Zibanejad wouldn't waive his no trade clause and they had to trade another guy. That's all it is. It's also you can sign Keandre Miller to some extension so he can like bobble pucks and lose puck battles. It's like really, really smart, and it's an analytics driven move, and I don't love it whatsoever. And if I was a fan of this team, I would probably jump ship. But yes, moving on. Pittsburgh Penguins, lots of drama there. This is a drama segment. They are reportedly not extending longtime legend and right hand man of the franchise, Evgeny Malkin. He's entering his final year with the Penguins, and yeah, according to Josh Yeo of the Athletic, who kind of always has some spicy takes that are from sources. Sources tell Josh Yeo. That's always the where the material seems to come from. And I got to give the guy props. He has his sources, and he's never really been proven wrong. So I mean, you're right until you're proven wrong with this info from all accounts. But Aiden, not extending Malkin. I'm going to wait to get you to comment because there's more. Yo also reported a few days earlier. This comes 3 days earlier. Chris Letang, face of the blue line for the past what, 15 years? Um, Apparently his playing style irked, and that's the exact word, irked. Former head coach Mike Sullivan, who has now jumped ship for the New York Rangers, as well as assistant coach David Quinn. Apparently, according to sources, mental errors in Letang's game were cited. This is just some real, like, I'm really unhappy with my breakup, so I'm complaining every time I encounter someone who's like friends with or associated with this ex. It's like, oh, I see my ex-girlfriend's friend's boyfriend. I'm just gonna complain about how they acted at some specific occasion. Like, to be honest, man, like grow up. I shouldn't be telling Mike Sullivan to grow up, but dude, grow up if this is what you're doing.
That's fair.
And last piece for the Penguins. If you'll remember from a few years ago, they were sold to Fenway Sports Group, primarily owned by Mario Lemieux and a handful of other people before that. Fenway Sports Group notably owns the Boston Red Sox and a little organization called Liverpool FC. Ever heard of them? Yeah,
Potentially
apparently they're
no
looking
on
at
this show,
selling
I
them
guess.
again, and Lemieux is leading a group interested in buying them back. Um, Aiden, what can you tell us about this?
Oh, dude, what can I tell? Like this is this is kind of what happens when you get those huge multinational conglomerates with their hands into these teams. Um, if there's not immediate financial dividends, something's got to give because this is like a faceless organization that bought them. There was no changes made. It was basically just like, hey, we own you now. Keep doing what you're doing. Um,
Yeah, I worked at a Canadian Tire once when that happened, and it sucked. I actually I liked it worse.
yeah, yeah. Because then you have the people that are like, okay, then it's mine. I will take control. I will come. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, um,
What voice was that?
that was my mock person seizing authority they haven't earned voice. Um,
Okay, all right.
I sup
It sounded like did you ever watch SpongeBob when you were a kid?
very minimally.
Okay, well the superheroes in SpongeBob were Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, and they're the supervillains that the supervillain organization was called Evil, and it was an acronym for Every Villain is Lemons, which just like wasn't ever supposed to make sense. But the bad guys in that I think there was one called like Manta Ray or something like that, and that was what his voice sounded like. It's a little anecdote for you.
You got to find a clip then.
Yeah.
Um, sorry.
How can you
So
get your train of thought back after that?
great question. A couple things happen when a big conglomerate buys a team and doesn't see financial dividends. Um, the Pittsburgh Penguins is one of them, where they're just going to immediately look to, okay, let's return on investment the best we can, and they're going to sell them again. They could look to relocate them depending on where they are. Often, big companies like to buy teams and then try and like leverage the city into building them a stadium. Um, that obviously didn't happen in this instance. But the other thing that sometimes happens is what happened to you talked about Liverpool, James. Um, an American group bought Manchester United,
Yep.
and the quality of the club tanked for countless reasons. Primarily the fact that they weren't investing in the club as much as the previous owners were. So as far as the sale and now subsequent resale of this franchise, what I'll end with is thank God it's going to end up in hands of people who want it, right?
Sure.
Um, People from this area. It was who bought the Vancouver Grizzlies, made them the Memphis Grizzlies. Like it was the owner bought the franchise and then relocated them. I have a funny feeling the Vancouver Whitecaps locally what were for sale. I had a funny feeling the same thing was going to happen there, and it still could. So as much as this is weird, I am just happy to see hockey be in the hands of people who care about hockey, and the Lemieux led group is without a doubt more those people.
Well, if Lemieux buys the team, Crosby's retiring a Penguin. If he doesn't, then that might not happen.
The Cole Harbor boys, man.
Yeah.
I know you'd dream of that, but
Yeah, I want to see it. It would be cool. But oh, wait, one thing we didn't throw in our rundown. Colorado re-signed Brock Nelson to a massive extension.
that's interesting. I wouldn't have.
I I really liked what I saw from him, but I think Colorado looked at the center market out there and they looked at how he played with a recently reinserted Landeskog, and they thought, all right, let's stick with this. And I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I'm happy with it. I'm happy having another good player.
Yeah,
I have no problem with another good player being on the team, especially with the cap going up.
yeah, and I think the term is where Colorado gets saved a little bit. It was just a
Yeah,
3 year deal, right? Four?
it's 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
25, 26, 26, 27. It's three. Yeah, it's
yeah,
3 years. $7.5 million
that's not
for
even bad whatsoever.
for any more than that, we would have had a massive problem. Like just very simply. Like I
Yeah.
don't think a 38-year-old Brock Nelson is going to be anything better than a third or fourth line center. But getting him at this number for 3 seasons is, I think, a lot better than say like a 5 by 5 because you see that happen
Dude,
sometimes.
totally.
So realistically, if Nelson was going to get his money, this is the best way for Colorado to do it in this setup. I just think that 7.5 million per year for 3 years could have been used better by the Avs. But again, you said it yourself. The center
Hey,
market
would you
was
rather
weak.
that or Stamkos's 4x8?
I'd rather this.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then I feel good. That was
Yeah.
the one thing I needed to get past. Okay, moving on. To me, an absolute legend of the game, a guy whose career I've loved and followed for a lot of years. TJ Oshie. He officially announced his retirement. The guy sat out for, I believe, the entire season, and his back just can't do it anymore. But I listened to the Empty Netters podcast quite a bit, and he's hopped on their pod. I think probably once every round through playoffs. And I mean, just all of his talk about his high school hockey at War Road and what he's done for sports gear or with his War Road brand as well. It's super cool to see. I can't think of as many players I'm as interested in following post career.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool to see what he does. He's
Okay.
just a real solid, genuine dude. And weirdly enough, his late father, affectionately known as Coach Osh, coached a guy I used to party with while playing junior A for a team called the Seattle Totems.
Love it. Uh, TJ Oshie, most famously, I think, 3 shootout goals in the Sochi Olympics to help the Americans pass the host Russians. That was one small piece of an amazing career. Stanley Cup champion in 2018 with the Washington Capitals. James, obviously, like this, this is an obvious statement, but I still want to say, like, imagine how many players would have retired with no silverware if not for that 2018 win. Like it would have been criminal if Oshie and John Carlson and Nicholas Backstrom and
Did you say
Kuznetsov
silverware? That's
um
cutlery.
um
You said silverware. That's totally cutlery. What did they
silverware's
have knives
cutlery.
and
What did I
forks for
say?
that team? You said silverware.
I think I meant hardware, yeah?
Yeah,
I
you
must
totally meant
have.
hardware, but you were
That's so
talking about
funny.
cutlery, dog. John Carlson has a brand new knife and fork
Yeah, I
set.
was gonna say all these guys are getting their forks. But
Dude, it's a mug, not a spoon. Come on.
Oshie is one of Oshie's one of a lot of guys who would have criminally retired without a ring had Washington not won that cup, and he was appropriately a massive part of that playoff run. Only I think that was one of his less successful regular seasons, but in the playoffs he was a beast and kind of walked so a lot of others could run as far as American wingers. Like he was one of the first ones to really pop out. It was him and Phil Kessel and Blake Wheeler in the mid 2000s that really made the U.S. their own as far as that style of player. So great career and congratulations to Oshie.
100%. Yeah, yeah. Watch for him post career. It'll be a great time. One last piece of NHL news I wanted to touch on. This is something that was talked about a little bit earlier in the year, and it feels like it fizzles out and comes back as expansion topics do. Oh, did I bury the lead? Expansion. Yes. Yes, that's correct. The Atlanta expansion group that I believe Ace of TNT fame. It's your boy Ace here.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you haven't seen those memes, dude, Anson Carter memes are probably the best thing to hit NHL social media in a long time. But it's your boy Ace here, and he's part of the Atlanta expansion group. Apparently, they have an arena deal pre-approved for if they nail their expansion bid. So tell me, is it a foregone conclusion that Atlanta and Houston have NHL teams in the next 5 years?
I hope not, but yes. I begrudgingly yes. Um it's hard because like there's so many good hockey players not in the NHL, man. A lot of them. But adding 2 teams feels like you're diluting a league that it has noticeably been diluted. by
Nah,
two
it's
expansion
it's
teams.
cool. Not everybody needs to be a superstar.
Not everybody needs to be a superstar. Okay.
Okay, I'm down for a league where Matthew Phillips is on a third line. I'm down for that.
Listen, you know what? One of the things I think this has contributed to the scoring. Scoring's gone up big time since and during the expansion of Vegas and then subsequently Seattle.
Enduring.
During the expansion, I think I got that one right. I think you're
Yeah,
looking for it
yeah,
now.
no. Enduring it. I thought you were saying like enduring it, like it was a battle. Like it was hard to get
No, no,
through
no.
it.
Just that I think the defense and goaltending weakening team by team because of the two teams being added is one of many reasons you're seeing 153 point Art Ross Trophy winners in the 2020s and 87 point Art Ross Trophy winners in the mid 2010s.
Because there aren't as many quality defensemen out there.
Yeah, and that and the forwards, the top end forwards are just getting unreal. Like that 87 points, I think was a Jamie Benn Art Ross year.
That
Nothing
was
against
Jamie
Jamie
Benn
Benn.
beating John Tavares on the last day of the season with a 4-point game.
Yeah.
It's
Nothing against either of those guys. It's just that's not
I think
153
Ryan
points.
Getzlaf was probably third or fourth in points that year. I think he had like 80. Yeah.
Corey Perry won a Hart one time. Getzlaff. I don't think any individual awards.
No, but it stands to be said that Ryan Getzlaf very well probably would have won that Hart Trophy if he didn't get injured for the like 15, 20 games of that season. And Perry had 1 point in that 14 or 15 games without Getzlaf.
I thought it should have been Daniel Sedin, but that's that's neither here nor there. One of the
Recognizing
things,
bias, Aiden.
well,
Recognizing bias.
that was 2011-12, so it was also 9.
Yes,
Um,
9-year-olds can be biased
yeah.
too.
Um,
Speaking of recognizing bias, we are about to have a PWHL team in Vancouver, and we just have our first superstar. Who is she? Walk us through it, Aiden.
yeah, no, I think I think a marketable superstar is without a doubt the top of new teams' wish lists. And PWHL Vancouver has theirs in Sarah Nurse, who has been a known commodity since she was at the University of Wisconsin. And since then, the international resume has stood up for itself. She was unbelievable at the last Winter Olympics. Like, just one of the most unplayable players that Canada's had in an individual tournament. Like Marie-Philippe Poulin correctly gets all of the accolades, but Sarah Nurse and Brianne Jenner in 2022 were the big difference makers for Canada in winning that Olympics rather than the USA. She's had 2 seasons with the PWHL Toronto team and is now coming to Vancouver. 30 years old. If you aren't a women's hockey follower and have no idea who I'm talking about, she was on the NHL 23 cover with Trevor Zegras, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So lots of hockey fans have seen her, even if you don't know her by name.
Yeah, definitely. It is a huge benefit, and if you want to see exactly how good she is, I want to say go check the 2022 Women's Winter Olympics,
Yeah,
and she was absolutely insane.
best
Like,
player, best
yeah.
player in that tournament. Yeah.
Aiden, where do we take this from now? I
I
think, oh, AHL.
Yeah, I think we take it to another league. We have listen, we had the NHL, PWHL. We have 2 more leagues to cover at least the
Oh,
end of the playoffs of. AHL, Abbotsford against Charlotte. James, I gotta say, I was in that building. Abbotsford winning their, I think, game 6 over Texas to make the Calder Cup final. Absolutely ludicrous that the Vancouver Canucks AHL affiliate hasn't been in Abbotsford for 25 years, obviously. Because oh my God, the electricity, atmosphere, the amount that that city's into this team right now. Like, dude, you saw all the Canucks fans marching through Surrey and Vancouver with the flags and the noisemakers when the Canucks were in the playoffs in round 2. Like the Abbotsford Canucks AHL team is garnering similar support in Abbotsford, and that's awesome. I love it. The fact that this hasn't been happening forever is horrible because we are getting some awesome local hockey in BC. Um, Abbotsford Canucks playoff games with all those towels and the noise in that small arena. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Go see it if you haven't. They're in tough in this AHL final against Charlotte. Two teams that have a lot of NHL quality players and a lot of guys that 100% would be would be on teams' lists if they were expanding this year. Artur Shilovs for Abbotsford has had a crazy playoff. Linus Carlson, I think, has stamped his roster spot for the Canucks for next season in the playoffs as well. Just awesome hockey through and through. Really proud of this Abbotsford team. I wanted to yap about Abbotsford off the hop because the team they're playing, unfortunately, the Charlotte Checkers, um, this team is the favorite for a reason, and the reason is they're crazy good. um, like Capo Kakinen, to me, I've always thought was an NHL goalie, man. Always, always, always. He's playing currently for that Charlotte Checkers team and has a 1.84 goals against average in the playoffs. That's where we're at. They had won back-to-back series by virtue of a sweep coming into this one. Abbotsford took game one in overtime. Charlotte took game two in overtime. Really awesome hockey, and again, we're Canadian based, specifically Western Canadian based. So, if you are in a position in which getting to an Abbotsford Canucks game, both distance and financially, if you can, do awesome stuff.
What do these tickets cost?
That's a fantastic question because they fluctuate, as you can imagine,
Oh yeah.
um, based on based on the what, the when. Um,
Why the how?
right now they're up above $130, which they never are. And that's like the final in the middle of the ice, right? Like so this is something that even next season, like I know Abbotsford's it's Highway 1. Highway 1 no matter what. If you're coming from west, Highway 1, get off, get to the rink. If you're coming east, like go watch a Abbotsford Canucks game. Like I was blown away, honestly.
There's not much that'll get me to Abbotsford, but I will strongly consider it. Very strongly. I detest driving in that direction. Absolutely detest.
James also has a driving thing though. You got to
Yeah,
keep that in
very
mind.
true. I don't like bridges. Really don't.
No.
Bridges are not my thing. Moving on, let's take it over to the CHL Memorial Cup, Aiden. We have drawn to a close in London. The Knights have taken the victory. Walk us through exactly what happened and make it exciting for us, please and thanks.
Make it exciting. Unfortunately, like again, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna have a lot of people that would probably disagree with me, but I think the most boring outcome happened where the London Knights just played suffocating defensive hockey
Oh,
for the last
whoa, they
two
were
games.
good, so it's boring.
No, they weren't good. It's just like they were very Florida Panthers in how they handled the end of this tournament because they lost to Medicine Hat, um, and it seemed like the entirety of their plan against Medicine Hat was to throw everything on net and then just stop the first line. And they did. They peppered Harrison Menigan and they shut down the first line, but Medicine Hat had the secondary scoring to pull through. London never took their foot off the gas in this final. It was 4-0 before like just barely past the halfway point of the second period against the Medicine Hat Tigers. And for all of the slack that Easton Cowan had picked up this season for good reason as far as his World Junior performance went, like the critiques were well founded. He went back to the OHL, and much in the same way that Nick Suzuki seemed like he was gonna take his international disappointments and just take it out on all his opponents. Easton Cowan did the same thing. He did the same thing for the rest of the game. Regular season,
Fun, doesn't
39. Yeah, 39 points in 17 games in the playoffs and ends up Memorial Cup champion. Obviously, unfortunate that somebody like Gavin McKenna isn't hoisting it, but he's also got another kick at this can next year.
No, he
So,
doesn't.
and he doesn't. I think he does. I don't think he does. Or sorry, I don't think he's leaving
No?
yet. No.
Hmm.
Two things. All right, Caden Lindstrom, I think would be very smart to go to the NCAA. He is. He's going to Michigan State.
Agreed.
Um, Now, the problem is games played. NCAA teams play a fraction of the games that CHLers play, especially somebody like Gavin McKenna. That can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing. I think for Caden Lindstrom, it's a really good thing, rehabbing from a back injury, to be playing 30-ish games against strong opponents. But Gavin McKenna, conversely, I think needs to play as much hockey as he can. When like the reason that you don't get drafted until you're 18, like it's
Used to be 19.
you need you need to get those games in. You need to get the reps in, and that's my 2 cents. So once you've been drafted and once your team has their development plan for you, I think you'll see you'll see CHLers jump for the NCAA at a pretty consistent rate. I don't think it's smart for draft eligible guys. It's not a big enough sample size. And that includes, of course, McKenna for next year.
Completely off topic, but did you know David Legwand sold the Sarnia Sting?
No,
Did you know that David Legwand owned the Sarnia Sting?
no, didn't know that either. David Legwand and Martin Erat were the Nashville Predators forwards at a time in which they had no other good forwards.
Mike Fisher.
Mike Fisher, famously the less famous of his celebrity couple.
Is it a bad thing to be less famous than Carrie Underwood?
No, but that's
No.
me. I don't like people knowing me. That's why James is on all the reels. I just
Oh,
I'm just
and I
like,
have a bit of an ego problem,
there you
so
go. No,
yeah.
that's what, hey, listen, we're two sides of the coin here. Like, I want that graphic, like the logo says with James Parisi and Aiden Sarah, just because that's how I wanted it. And James, I'm sure, is thrilled with it too.
And I'm
Like,
not the one who made it.
yeah.
I actually did not provide any input other than looks great, man, because my name was first. Well, Aiden, I think that's all we've got for today's episode, unless you have anything else to add. But just one more time, I would like to give the biggest congrats from the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast to this Florida Panthers team. Honestly, I hope they do it all again. Without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.